the first podcast today, and we are so honored to invite Shelli to be a VIP guest to join our podcast. It's really great to have you here. You have like really great experience in space and technologies as well, as a background from Forbes and other places, like really amazing. And today the topic will be like kind of Shelli GPT, because you are having a greater knowledge than the chat GPT. You are beyond the AI. So yeah, let's start.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really honored to be with you. I'm not sure that I have all the resources that ChatGPT has because they're able to scour the internet, but I can certainly give you my experience from the space industry, having been in it 35 years, as well as doing interviews with global thought leaders. So I'm happy to share what I know.
Okay, sure. Would you mind to start to introduce your backgrounds, and probably you would like to share about how do you start your first journey to step into the space industries, and how along the journey like you evolving from the very early stage until now? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I always like to say that my journey has 4 chapters. And the first chapter is right out of high school, I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force because I didn't have college money and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study had I gone to college. I wanted to see the world. And at that time in the 80s, the best way to see the world was to join the military. And I wanted to learn a profession, and the Air Force made me a personnel specialist, so like human resources. And I was stationed in Turkey and Germany, which allowed me to see the world. So it was a wonderful opportunity. And so for those first 12 years, I was an enlisted airman stationed overseas, but I was able to also go to school at night. And after going to school at night, I did complete my college education. And at that point, I applied to become an officer in the Air Force, and I was accepted. And that started the second chapter of my journey, becoming an officer in the Air Force. And that's when my space journey started, because the Air Force made me a space acquisition officer. So I was the person who helped procure satellites and launch vehicles, rockets, and ground stations, and work with companies that could build and create those type of technologies. So that's what I did. And when I retired from the Air Force, and I did a lot of careers, by the way, before I retired. So I was space acquisition, I was a congressional liaison. I worked on the U.S. Capitol Hill, working with legislators and policymakers. I taught at Defense Acquisition University, so I taught about space procurement cycles and did contracting. So that was culminated my 29-year career in the Air Force. And when I retired from the Air Force, I then went to work and started my third chapter working in a nonprofit. And the nonprofit was really focused on education, workforce development, as well as events. So I helped put on some of the world-class events like Space Symposium, created world-class educational programs, kindergarten through 12th grade, as well as some of the first entrepreneurial programs to reach out beyond the space industry circle of contract companies that were doing space at the time, but to reach out to more traditional companies to look at ways to come into the space community, because as we've seen over my journey, space has really changed, and we'll talk more about that later. So that was like the third chapter of my journey. And then last year, I was so hooked on helping entrepreneurs, I decided to become an entrepreneur myself. So now I'm a motivational speaker, author, and futurist, and that's what led us to be together today. So thank you so much.
Well, that's really impressive backgrounds and experience you have. That sounds so interesting. So just would like to know, across these years, do you like have any ideas on sustainability? How should it connect it to the space? And if any experience you have been in this area, would you mind to share a little bit?
Absolutely. So space technology is one of the most effective enablers for sustainability on Earth. So many times people think about, oh, we're going to go to space, we're going back to the moon and on to Mars, or it's about space activities, astronauts and rockets, but really space comes back to Earth. According to the World Economic Forum, we're looking at in 2023, the global space economy was $630 billion, and they're projecting it to grow to 1.8 trillion by 2035. And 80% of that is commercial. It's products and services we use every day. So satellites provide a unique global vantage point, allowing us to track deforestation, monitor glacial retreat, map ocean health, detect methane emissions, but then they're also driving our global economy. When you think about finance, all our financial transactions are being run through space technology. Or you think about Our agriculture, our food is being grown using global positioning system to track it for smart agriculture and smart tracking of crops. We're using global positioning tracking to monitor the logistics and movement of cargo goods around the world. So we're using space every day. And on average, you're using a satellite about 45 times a day, according to my good friend, Nicolas Maubert from the French Space Agency. And I also highlight a lot of these ways that space is interacting with our daily life in my Forbes Technology Council articles. So for anybody who wants to learn more about space and food or space and sustainability, space and quantum, space and AI, I ask you to go check out my Forbes Technology Council. You can look at all the different articles and see if some might be interesting to you. The last point I'll bring up is that space and sustainability also aligns with the UNUSA, which is the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, Space 2030 Agenda. And what they highlight is that the UN has come up with 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And what UNUSA is saying is that for every one of those goals to be accomplished, space is part of the solution. So it's never been a better time to be part of the space industry.
Okay, that's great. So I would like to start the first prompt about satellites and sustainability. Do you know what are the most powerful ways of the space technologies like satellite imagery or orbital data is being used today to fight climate change and support ESG efforts on the Earth? Like any kind of technologies, maybe you would like to share something that can actually fighting the climate change and maybe it's like for future that can be works. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I talked about a few of them. When you think about satellite data, they're passing over the Earth in the same location multiple times, so they can see differences. So some of those differences could be tracking methane leaks, especially for the oil and gas industry. You know, it's important to maintain infrastructure integrity. You could also look at, are we looking at deforestation or firefighting? Are we looking at firefighting? We can do better weather predictions. Will some parts of the world, as we're looking at forecasting weather, will they experience droughts? And do we need to let farmers know that maybe this isn't the year to plant crops because there'll be droughts? Or is it going to be a wet year? We've seen in lots of parts of the world where they're getting a lot of rain, like Cameroon got a lot of rain, and then other parts are getting less rain. So a lot of what's happening is with satellite data is we can use that to help predict what the climate will be like to help businesses, farmers, innovators understand how they can manage that climate change and be resilient and then still be profitable and successful. So lots of great data is coming from satellites and Earth imaging.
Okay, great. Like today, we see the news that actually the Russia is actually the earthquake. Not sure is there any technologies on the space that can something relate to the earthquakes and probably tsunami. We can do the precautions and preventions on there. Anything else you would like to share, something of the new ideas and probably future technologies?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that NASA was working on was seismic activity on Mars, putting sensors on Mars to help with seismic activity monitoring and how Mars climate and tectonics work. They don't have the same tectonic plates as US, but they do have seismic activity. So we can use space-based technology to evaluate the Earth crust, the movements, seismic activity. So there are opportunities, but we can also look at, as the Ring of Fire, we call it, that Pacific Ring, which is on a moving tectonic plate. You can put those seismic activities, you can tie it in with satellite data, so you can watch structural movements. And with certain types of imaging, you can see down into the ocean to see where there might be some movements and hot spots that look more active. Is the volcano looking more active? Could it potentially erupt? Or so we could look at space technology to look at some of those changes that are happening and use that Earth imaging to help maybe provide individuals with more time to prepare for those type of activities. Because right now we don't have a lot of preparation for earthquakes. I lived in California. And the more we can think about, will there be a movement of the plate tectonics causing earthquakes, the better we can help people to prepare.
Oh yeah, that's really a great idea, especially to track the movements. It's very first time I'm seeing we can use satellite to do these kind of things. it's pretty interesting.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to leave that to the NASA experts as to whether
yeah,
we can use satellites. But again, it's part of that Earth imaging. Can we see some changes on the Earth that could
yeah,
cause us to think that a volcano might erupt? Are we seeing some of that? So we could do a lot of monitoring both
yeah.
on Earth, like the seismic monitoring on Mars is actually something that's on the surface of Mars. It's not being monitored from space. But
Okay.
there's lots of technology that we can use on Earth, combine it with satellite data and imaging that's coming, and we can have a better picture of, do we think a volcano might erupt? Is that volcano, is magma moving under those chambers of the volcano because tectonic plates are moving? Could that movement cause an earthquake? If that earthquake happened, where might it happen? What effect could it have? So it's not a matter of, oh, I'm getting satellite data imaging that's saying we might have an earthquake. It's more
Yeah.
putting all pieces together using, which I know we're going to talk about soon, about AI. Could we be using artificial intelligence to help us better predict with our ground understanding of seismic shifts as well as Earth observation, and then using AI to help us run several potentially Monte Carlo simulations to see when might we have an earthquake or volcanic activity.
Okay, yeah, I liked your ideas. It's really great. I think the audience will be really gets a fresh new ideas about all the new technologies on the satellite and all these things. Really great. So I would like to discuss a bit about the AI technologies. So like for instance, we are a startup that doing the ESG and carbon accounting software. So in the futures, if we would like to involve in a part of the race of the space sustainability, do you have any advice like how we can get into the first step into that part?
Well, absolutely. So I think what's really exciting, let's talk about the convergence of AI, space, and sustainability. Because a lot of people think those are individual, isolated, siloed activities. Space is over here, AI is here, and sustainability, when actually they're all interconnected. And I've shared in some of my Forbes articles some insights on space and AI, but we look at how it becomes a bridge between orbit and Earth. So we have space systems that generate vast amounts of data. You know, the satellites are passing overhead multiple times a day, sometimes, depending what orbit they're in. Obviously, further out orbits is much slower, but they're producing vast amounts of data. And from that satellite imagery to be analyzed, we really need AI in the loop, because a human being can't really process all that data imagery, but AI can process it very quickly and then provide some actionable insights to human beings. Like I said, if we're watching the Earth plate tectonics move and we're using satellite data, but we've got Earth instruments as well monitoring it, AI could run those simulations very quickly and let us know, based on scenarios, could we have an impact, or are there other things that could happen that are really important, like based on scenarios and Earth imaging, could this part of the US or Africa or South America suffer from a drought? Or is this an El Nino or La Nina system, which will greatly impact the fisheries and the wildlife? So in space, AI is already being used. We're powering Mars on rovers on Mars using autonomous ability for them to maneuver. We enable smart satellite navigation. We support orbital debris tracking. So these systems that must operate independently and adapt in real time. So there's already, space has been using AI to an extent. On Earth, that same intelligence is now being applied for forecasting. So can we forecast wildfires, monitor droughts, model urban heat islands? You know, we're seeing a lot of heat around the planet this summer in Europe, in the US, and elsewhere. So can we use that AI and space data to monitor where those heat islands might be to help prevent loss of life? Can we optimize renewable energy deployment? So AI makes it possible to personalize sustainability, translate orbital data into hyper local action. So it's not just something in space. We can translate that hyper into this part, this city is going to have a heat dome. We need people to stay inside or go to cooling centers so they stay, you know, so we don't have people die from heat exhaustion. And then as we look ahead, maybe 15 years, I see AI as the force multiplier that allows us to fully leverage space technology for planetary resilience. It's not just about innovations in orbit, it's also about impact here on Earth.
Okay, so that's also a question, a very popular question among recently. Like, do you see AI is a threat or is kind of like opportunities? How do you see the threat and also the opportunities on there? Would you like to share something else on there?
Well, of course, any technology has positives and negatives. Nuclear energy is a positive. It can also, nuclear bombs can be a negative. So any type of technology has pluses and minuses. So I think AI is going to unlock a lot of innovation. I personally use AI. I mean, it helps me answer emails quicker, formulate ideas quicker, but I'm always in the loop. But a negative side is sometimes AI is used and it's not your approval. So for instance, I've had some people want to promote a talk I'm doing, and they quickly produced an AI generated photo of me. And I went back and said, you can't use an AI generated photo, although it makes me look very young and attractive, but I want to be authentic. So you get to see me for who I am. So I said, please, no AI generated photos. Let's let everybody see me the way I am. And so there's pluses and minuses. And then, of course, there can be other things. When does AI, is it smarter than humans? Well, not right now. What AI is doing is it's scrubbing the internet. It's still taking, like we'll say ChatGPT, it still requires prompts from me to get to the answer I want. And it isn't always factual. That's a nice way of saying sometimes it lies. I mean, that's been on the news as well. So you can't just take AI for what it is. You, as the human being, have to verify everything and make sure it's accurate. So yes, there are positives and negatives. One of the things I heard on the news is, just imagine in 20 years, the doctor you go to see may have used ChatGPT to get through college. How do you feel about that? Well, I don't necessarily feel good or bad, because I see a lot of the doctors I go to today, and it's less about patient care and it's more about the computer and the process and the administration that they have to do that ties up their time. So could AI really release them to spend more quality time with the patient? So I think, again, positives and negatives.
Yeah, I would like to share something interesting. Like in our country, like some doctors and pharmacies, they actually starting to use AI to diagnose the sickness, and also to use the medications by using the AI, ChatGPT and Grok. That's really like, I get shocked, like, oh, I can do this my own, but I do not like get it professional advice. But that would be great also for validations, to ensure that their judgment or maybe their decisions is the right. Maybe they want to use it to validate the answers or something else. Yeah, it is pretty interesting that I started to see like a lot of pharmacies, they started to use the AI.
Absolutely. And it's not even that. A lot of medications interact with other medications. So if you're on a heart medication, can you take a blood thinner? So I think having a pharmacist or a doctor have that information, yes, they would probably normally look it up, but maybe AI can give them a quicker response. And again, the important part is they need to verify it, because right now AI is not always reliable. But I will say, one of the things I have is an autoimmune disease. And my doctor, this was 15 years ago, what she did is she put my symptoms into Google, and Google came out with the autoimmune disease. So it's no different than what people were doing 20 years ago, just putting it into Google and giving them, oh, you had all these symptoms. Oh, you might have an autoimmune disease. Okay, now we can start you down a different treatment. So what I share is, I don't think it's a negative thing. The biggest thing is it should be a tool, like a phone or a calculator. It should not be the final answer.
Yeah, true. But for me personally, I see AI would be much more better opportunities. The pros is much more than cons. It's much interesting for the next 10 years, especially the robots coming out, and we got more new AGI and all these things. Yeah, I'm not sure like what's going on after the next 20 years.
Well, there is going to be a lot of upheaval, especially as we look at jobs. AI could replace some jobs, create new jobs. So I think what we really need to think about is everyone needs to be a lifelong learner. They need to continually reskill and upskill, because AI may or may not replace you, but what will replace you is your inability to use AI. So you need to stay current. And there are a lot of free programs out there. I talk about it in my book series, some places you can get some free training on AI. So I would recommend that everybody, whether you feel passionate about it, good or bad, it's really important to understand that that technology is coming, just like the calculator, and you just need to know how to harness it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I see there's quite a lot of good books that you actually you write out. It's really interesting content. I also view some YouTube videos of your other podcasts. It's really great. I strongly recommend that like everyone to take a look on Shelli channels, and also you can purchase the books from Amazon, right?
Absolutely. So my first book is out called What Space Got to Do with It, 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth. And it's really about helping individuals understand that the lessons I learned in the space industry translate into any industry. And I wanted to make it like I was talking with you, coaching you. So it's not just I talk about a lesson. I actually give you insights from 3 global thought leaders. And then I give you insights into action. So I give you takeaways. What can you do next? What books could you read? What courses could you take? What tools could you sign up for? As well as you said, there's also a book launch webinar series that goes with it. That's complimentary. That's on my YouTube channel, Shelli Brunswick YouTube. And so you can watch those videos for free.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And besides the AI technologies, do you foresee or maybe you forecast the next 10, 20 years, like what kind of space technologies will become very advanced technologies that we couldn't imagine right now? You want to share something like really think out of the box?
Absolutely. So as we really think long term, and I've done a few forecasting activities for some space agencies, right now, a lot of our space programs are really still centered on Earth, with Earth imaging, Earth observation, the International Space Station, and we're looking to return to the moon and then eventually go on to Mars. But none of that is really new, as we know. But some of it is new because we've lost some of the capabilities. Our ability, that Saturn V rocket that was built to take astronauts to the moon, we're rebuilding new rockets now to take us to Mars and beyond. So I do see more activities where space is more integrated. It's already integrated into our daily lives, but becomes more integrated into life on Earth. But then also are there economies that are different? So we already are looking at a cislunar economy, which is the Earth to the moon, and the economic opportunities of that. Are we going to look at resource mining from asteroids? Obviously, our planet has a finite amount of resources. There are a lot of amazing companies that are looking at asteroid mining. Now, again, right now, we're not sure how we're going to get the products from those asteroids down to Earth. There's some challenges with that piece, but could those products be used off planet for a different kind of economy, an economy on Mars or economy elsewhere? So I do see us becoming that interplanetary species. Do we go and live on Mars and the moon and other activities? Do we take vacations in space? Absolutely. So will there be a Marriott orbiting the planet Earth and you take your family to Marriott for vacation? Absolutely. So we're going to see a lot of those type of activities taking place, as well as the full integration of space technology into daily lives. I mean, it's already integrated. We're using communication devices right now to do this webinar. All of this telecommunication technology came from the space industry, from the Apollo era 50 years ago. So right now, the investment that's taking place in space is going to leverage what's going to happen over the next 50 years. So that's why it's really important that we are investing, not just as governments though, but as industries, because what's going to make space sustainable is that it's also commercially viable. So yes, research, innovation is important, but also commercialization is critical. So having those public-private partnerships, creating an ecosystem that allows us to understand the research and technology, the innovation, but then also the commercialization side.
Okay, so like on the planet, a lot of countries, they still like the space technology is still very strict and protected by the governments, and like normal startups or any normal company, they're not able to get into that space because of the regulations and the limited technologies being shared. Do you have anything to share, like how can we promote these to be commercialized and everyone can be involved in the space instead of just purely rely on the government agency, not just for United States, but maybe for Malaysia, for the other countries? Do you have any ideas that we can push these things to be more commercialized?
Absolutely. So in my Forbes Technology Council article that just came out this July, when we're recording this, so we're going to date this a little bit, I talk about how nations can develop their space economy. And that's specifically the first thing I talk about is leadership. It's leadership, awareness, access, and action. So it has 4 components. And that leadership component really is about how governments create the infrastructure that allows industry to flourish. Now, one of the number 1 countries that is creating that is Luxembourg. I know you're thinking Luxembourg, but Luxembourg has created a legal system that allows companies to incorporate there. And so you're seeing a lot of space activity in Luxembourg. So even in the US, you think we'd have a lot of great legislation, but we're very parceled out with different government agencies, from the Department of Commerce to the FAA to NASA, to where approvals are. So it's really important for legislation to create the infrastructure that you want. So one piece of an example of legislation that I'll highlight is that up until 2004, in the US, you could not personally launch a rocket. I mean, look, fun rocket, yes, but not a rocket into space. It could only be done by the government. But Congress passed legislation that the president signed, so it became a law that allowed for the commercial use and the commercial development of rockets. And that's how SpaceX and Blue Origin came to be. So the US created a policy that allowed commercialization to follow. It didn't only do that though. So yes, you need the legislation. The other piece they did was they created some public-private partnerships. So they also provided some seed funding through NASA to SpaceX and other companies to provide that opportunity to grow a commercial market. And now you're seeing that same type of policy being used again to eventually replace the International Space Station. The ISS is due to be deorbited in 2030. And instead of the US government and other governments owning a space station, what they want to do is allow the commercial opportunities for commercial companies to have a space station. And then NASA and ESA and other space agencies become just a tenant unit. So you can think about a mall in any city of the world. It's a mall, and then Macy's or Nordstrom or H&M are that tenant unit in the mall, but the Macy's doesn't own the mall. So that model, that public-private partnership of how the government can create the policies, provide the funding to allow commercial sides to take over. And in low Earth orbit, we're at a point where the US government nor other governments really don't need to be in low Earth orbit, which is a lot of the activities that relate to Earth benefits and financial opportunities and what we call the downstream. So not the upstream going to space, but the downstream of all the verticals of technology that are creating businesses. So that's something to think about for governments around the world. And in my article, I do talk about Malaysia and Singapore. So I encourage your audience to check out that article and see some of the ways. And again, it's 4 things that lead to that. It's leadership, awareness, access, and action.
Okay. Is that article already published?
It is published. It just came out about the middle of this month. So they can Google it, Shelli Brunswick, national space economies or something, and it will come up. Or it'll come up if you Google Shelli Brunswick Forbes Technology Council, and it should be the top article you can look at.
Okay, because currently I'm based in a state called Penang. It's actually it's a place that the media always say is the east version of Silicon Valley. And here is like have a lot of MNC, and they're starting build up the space tech companies recently from last year. So it's like kind of like they make these places to be more very technology advanced. Yeah. So it's really great if I can see you to visit Malaysia or Singapore by one day.
Absolutely.
Especially you are really amazing in the leadership in the space. Yeah. So
well, thank you. I'm really honored, and thank you so much.
Thanks. And I do have a questions for my personal own startup. Like climate tech startup like us, like doing carbon counting software with the AI technologies. Do you think any opportunities that we can actually step into the space, and which place should we start from would be the best for us?
Excellent question. So I think startups like StarfetchX are playing an essential role in shaping what I often call the space for Earth economy. So another series I have of articles is called Global Trends Magazine, and I highlight entrepreneurs around the world who are using space technologies to solve real-world challenges, from precision agriculture in Africa to wildfire monitoring in Australia. These innovators are not waiting for permission, they're identifying urgent needs and using space tools to meet them. So what I share with you is absolutely there are opportunities. And what I always say is space entrepreneurs are no different than any other entrepreneurs. What they're doing is they're solving a problem. That's what entrepreneurs do. They see a problem, their solution requires space innovation in it, and so they see a problem, they're creating a solution, and they think their solution is the best solution. So absolutely, I think your technology has a wonderful opportunity to solve real world challenges.
Yeah, I would like to introduce why our company named StarfetchX, because we not just want to do a carbon counting software, but we do have a bigger vision. We want to fetch the green technologies between the stars. So in the future, the next 10, 15 years, we hope that we can be the race or maybe in the part of the space economy as a sustainability company that provides software technologies on it. So that's the name comes from. So we have the StarfetchX.
Excellent. And I think what's also important to highlight is what sets successful space startups apart is like you, their mindset. Launch fast, learn constantly, and lead with purpose. And that same agility is what climate tech companies can emulate, whether you're using satellite data for carbon tracking or partnering with aerospace firms to scale sustainable solutions. Your speed and adaptability are key assets. So I think what you're doing is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for the great words. So I do have a few last questions. Like, do you forecast the next 5 to 10 years, like how the space technologies and also the sustainability technologies can be cross-sector collaborations? What do you like foreseen, or maybe any suggestions you would like to share? How can we work on that?
Absolutely. So in the next 5 years, we're going to see the rise of integrated ecosystems where space, AI, agriculture, climate, and fintech converge. And space data will underpin smart infrastructure, ESG verification, and sustainable finance, forming the digital backbone of climate resilience. We're also witnessing the emergence of powerful regional space hubs like in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. I recently interviewed Dr. Tidiane Ouattara, the president of the African Space Council for the African Space Agency, and he says the next Shangri-La for space is Africa, and that space is no longer a luxury. It's a race for the few. It's a necessity and an opportunity for all. So I think there's a real mind shift changing where some people see space as that thing over there for astronauts and rockets, but really space is integrated. As Dr. Tidiane says, it's not a luxury. Space is a necessity, and we're going to see that rapidly happen over the next 5 years, the importance. And I already talked about one of the things that will enable that, which is that public-private partnership will accelerate the innovation and democratization access to data, will empower solutions that are grassroots as well as global.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. And I do have a last questions. So the bonus prompt is like, if you have a cosmic magic wand, what do you want to change the world, and maybe something related to space Earth sustainability initiative? What kind of impact do you hope that it creates?
So if I had a magic wand, I'd launch a global initiative called the Orbital Sustainability Accelerator.
Wow.
A collaborative platform that brings together the best of space innovation, AI, technology, and community wisdom to solve Earth's most pressing climate challenges in real time. So this accelerator wouldn't be theoretical. It would be action-oriented. It would unite space agencies like NASA and ESA, international bodies like the United Nations, visionary startups like StarfetchX, investors, industry leaders, and grassroots nonprofit organizations. And together we co-develop scalable solutions that are both humanitarian in impact and commercially viable.
Yeah, I would be the first one to join our programs. Yeah.
Excellent. You're in.
Yeah. Please tell me if you are launching that things. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
I will be the first one to register.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, so before we ending the calls, do you have anything you want to share us about your your product and services, or maybe anything you want to share for mankind, to give some ideas or advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to start by thanking you so much for inviting me. I'm so honored to be the first guest to join you, so thank you. I also shared that my first book is out, What Space Got to Do with It, 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth. But what's even more exciting is this year, during World Space Week, the 4th through the 10th of October, my next book in the series is launching, called What Space Got to Do with It, An
Wow.
Interstellar Guide to Success. And it takes you how you can create impact through those 4 pillars that I already shared: leadership, awareness, access, and action. And what you can do, or governments can do, to create the impact you want long term. So I'm excited for that. And similar to what you already said, those videos that I have for the first book launch, I'm currently recording videos now for the next book launch. Those will also be released during World Space Week. So a really exciting time to check out the new book, as well as you said, check out those Forbes Technology Council articles about how nations can create a space ecosystem.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. And the Shelli GPT is downloading for the audience. And I would like to represent the audience to thank you so much to share all these impactful insights and very valuable tips, and also the information to every one of us. Yeah, it's really great to have you for our podcast. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be with you. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.